Hi guys, today I decided that I want to give back something to the community. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point, but I'm a competitive player. I don't play this game as much anymore because I don't have time, like real like becoming an adult and stuff, and having a work and a schedule and having other hobbies like video games. It leaves you with with not enough time to play this game, but I still have an idea of how to play this game. So when I saw these cards, the first thing I literally thought was Konami really doesn't want these cards to fail, and I thought that this might be a good topic for a video because I can show them to the more casual player base how how and why decks are competitive or not competitive, right? So this archetype embraces perfectly what a competitive deck is. So if you wanna hear an interesting story, come here, join the fun, and let's start. The first card we have is Whitebird, the Plunder Patrol helm. The first thing I do whenever I see a card is checking out the level, the stats, and more importantly, the type. I mean, I also see the attribute, but attribute support is really bad at this game mostly. I mean, it's basically just relevant for Dark, which has like Creeping Darkness, the beginning of the end, and Allure of Darkness, which are amazing cards. So if it's not Dark, I don't even check. So the first thing, it's a water card. It's not bad, it's just not great. Like this is the order for the attributes. Dark is the best attribute in the game. Light is the second best attribute in the game. Then earth, and then water. Like water is just literally better than fire and wind only. Earth, dark, and light have better cards. So this limits a lot the type of cards we can use. Like it's basically spiritual water art Aoi, which doesn't benefit this deck for nothing, and salvage, which is not really good. But yep, that's one thing. The second thing, it's a Fiend. Fiend is a terrible typing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Konami like tried to balance these cards by giving them mediocre attribute and a bad typing. The reason as of why Fiend is a bad type is because Fiend really doesn't have legacy support. It doesn't have a searcher like Reinforcement of the Army or Fire Formation Tenki. I like it basically is Fiendish Rhino Warrior and Fiend Griffin. It's basically that's all of the extent of its support. It's just not good, but I mean they try to balance these cards. Then the level it's okay for exist, but it's not that great for synchro uh, if they don't have a toolbox consisting of level 3 and level 4 monsters, because the best synchro monsters in the game are level 8 and level 7, so it's okay, right? The problem here is with Christian Halki Fibrax, because Halki Fibrax cannot summon this card, right? So it's whatever. So then after the stats are whatever, are not the greatest, but usually these cards I mean this card's not meant to be a beater. I can make a longer video later down the road explaining you like the basic functions cards perform in a deck, and I can easily tell from reading the card text that you are not meant to attack for game with this card at all. So, and we can see that in the first line, like, right? During your opponent's turn, quick effect, you can special summon what Plunder Patrol monster from your extra deck with the same attribute as a monster your opponent controls or in the graveyard. And if you do, equip this card to control to it, right? Here you can see that this card's not meant to be a beater. So it's okay if it doesn't have good attack points, right? So that's not a flaw at all. Then, what is this card meant to do, right? If it's not meant to be a beer, it's meant to be a toolbox card. A toolbox card is a card that lets you choose from a selection of cards that to suit or to address your situation better. Usually, the best decks have a great toolbox. You can easily see it in Galatea, the automated orchestron. That card can either draw you two cards, set a counter trap, or set Babel, which is basically more utility. It's basically removal. It's basically Galatea. It either gives you more cards, a negation, or disruption. A disruption would be by sending our opponent's card to the graveyard through the Girsu in their opponent in your opponent's turn, right? So look at how many different things can Galatea do. What's the best part about Galatea is that you don't have to draw her. Like you literally just need any Orcus monster and any other monster. That's pretty much it. That basically is what makes Orcus the best deck in this format. Is because it's a deck you don't even need to draw the cards to start playing. That's really powerful. And here you can see a component. I mean, if the extra the costs are not good, I mean the deck is not going to be good, right? But I don't think that was the case here. But I'm going to show you why in a while. So then that's the first effect. Then the other effect is if this card basically touches the graveyard from your monster zone or your hand, it is going to special summon a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck. So it's basically just meant to be. I mean, it's nice they added the Monster Sun effect, but it's not going to be really that relevant in this deck because what you're basically going to be doing with this guy is tagging him out. So it's basically if you discard this card, you special summon a Plunder Patrol monster from your deck. That's basically, I mean, I can see some scenarios where you are going to use his effect from the monster zone, mainly doing synchros, but I don't know, it's not that relevant, right? And then you cannot special summon more monsters other than Plunder Patrol monsters for obvious reasons, right? The reason as of why later combo decks like Card Dragons or Warrior Link have been able to do what they do is because they are generic and have no restrictions. Like they can any new Link card like Appaloosa or Abramax or Masquerina or whatever, they can just add to their arsenal because those cards have no restrictions like Malicious, like Vanish to summon Malicious, and then you have no restrictions with what you can do with Malicious. They try to fix that here, so that's fine. I think this is a really good Yu-Gi-Oh card. It's not completely overpowered, like at all, but it's really powerful because it's one of these cards that is going to give you plenty of options to play the game. I like these cards a lot. Then we have the red belt, like we can see the same attribute and the same typing, which is not great, and then it has even less attack. Then it has the same basic effect of tagging out on your opponent's turn, and then unlike the other card, like if you discard this card, you're going to summon this guy from your deck, right? If this card touches the graveyard from your hand or from the monster zone, it is going to equip himself to another Plunder Patrol monster, which I honestly don't see the point in. It's not going to be utterly useful because I mean this guy already tag themselves out and then equip themselves to the come from the extra deck, right? So it's pretty much redundant. It's basically just one card that adds redundancy. The definition for redundancy, or at least my definition of redundancy, is cards that basically perform the same role as other cards. For example, Vision Hero Bion and Armageddon Knight, right? I mean, in the context of Warrior Toolbox or Warrior Link deck, they basically perform the same exact function. Same with Dark Refer. This means that in the overall scheme of things, Warrior Toolbox decks was way easier to kickstart, right? So it's basically just the same function. Dump Malicious, make Isolde, and start playing. So this thing basically has the same role as the Bird guy, which is tag out extra deck in a toolbox thing, right? And then we have the extra deck cards, which are the most powerful cards out of this bunch, and they basically come for free. Right? The only thing you gotta do with this guy is wait until your opponent's turn, and then it can become a 25 beater or a 25 defender, which is exactly what a power normal summon is, right? So what you can see here from this boat, this boat basically makes you gain 500 attack to all of your enemy monsters. I don't even know why they added this effect. It's basically, yeah, I don't know. The beaters look large enough as is, but okay, it's okay. It's a free effect. Like it's 500 from this and 500 from the field spell. So that's fine. Then what this card does is basically become a more powerful Tornado Dragon. Basically, it's what it is. Basically, what you do is stack one of the small guys, summon this guy, discard a Plunder Patrol card, because this thing becomes a quick effect when it's equipped. But because these guys equip themselves, I mean these guys by themselves set up the boat, right? It's basically you can discard one Plunder Patrol card, then target one spell trap or trap card your opponent controls and banish it. Then you can add one Plunder Patrol monster from your deck to your hand. So what it basically does is take off one of the opponent's cards for free, because the card you discarded is the card you are going to replace. So that's really powerful. It's really powerful. I'm going to set up a quick example. Let's say you went first against, let's say, Sky Striker, which is the easiest example, and you open this guy and the trap card, which is this card, right? This card, basically what it does is allow you to change the attribute of one of your opponent's monsters, so you can summon whatever you want from your extra deck, right? So they summon, let's say, I don't know, like they summon Ray, I don't know, do and they tag out for, or they link summon the wind one, which can attack directly. I don't even remember the name. Wow, Hayate. They summon Hayate, and then you can basically force the tag out and either use this guy so they can't dump the engage, or you can even allow them to recur the engage, and when they try to set up back row, tag for this guy. Let's say you decide the option 2, which is allow him to play, and then just try to decimate back row, right? So you're tagged for this guy, and then in the end phase, they don't have multi-roll to simplify things. They have 3 sets, right? So what you're going to do is discard one card in your end phase, banish one, right? And you're going to add another monster. What you're going to do then is attack with this guy, and if they use, let's say, Mirror Force, you are going to change this guy's effect, decimate the last back row card, add another monster, and then out of the sudden you took out 3 back rows. Like that's really powerful. It's, I mean, I'm an AB Noble Knight player as a pet deck, and this is basically the same exact move that Noble Knight boss can pull out when dumping the tree until Noble Arms are needed once again. But but boss is a card somewhat difficult to resolve because it's a 2-card combo with an unsearchable card, which are the Noble Arms, and then with an unsearchable card from the extra deck. Yeah, I have to be more specific. So yeah, look at that. You decimated 3 back rows. That's way too much for control decks to be able to handle. So control decks are likely going to be a good matchup for this deck. And then this thing, the Plunder Patrol ship Moek, what it does is basically decimate monsters. I mean, monsters are way more powerful than back row, because you can summon many monsters per turn. And back row, I mean, they don't. And monsters can summon other monsters and stuff. Back row, if you set one back row, it's not going to set one other back row from your deck, right? So that's why this card is way more powerful versus. It has way more impact versus control deck than this card does versus combo deck. That doesn't mean this card is bad at all. What it does is take one of the key combo pieces out of the equation, like Isolde or the something, and then reduce the output your opponent is going to be able to pull off, right? So, and then it's going to give you basically either the fill spell, basically. I mean, I can see some situations where you're going to want to add this card, but basically what you're going to be wanting to add is this card. So, for the time being, later we are going to have better toolbox. And what's the lesson to take off from these 4 cards? It's that these 4 cards can transform into basically any card of your deck that has a Plunder Patrol name. And that's exactly what makes it competitive. Such redundancy. Like I've told you, Galatea is competitive not only because it can search powerful cards, it's competitive because you don't have to draw hell. And in this case, you have 6 of these guys, which should be around 60% chance to open one, which is not great for the time being. But if we get 2 of these smaller guys, you could go all the way to 6 to 12, which bumps the chance like 9% chance to open one guy that can tag out. Then basically your toolbox deck is completely open. So that's one thing. And yeah, Konami, like I told you, Konami doesn't want this deck to fail. Why? Because it will always do what it is meant to do. I mean, if your opponent has disruption, it won't. But I mean, it already relies on your opponent stopping you. For the deck not to function, it's going to function 100% of the time. Eventually, you just need more members, and with 2 more members, that's going to be enough for the deck to be utterly consistent, right? So that's one thing to consider. This deck will be consistent. It won't be like Cosmo or Novel Knights that open release were not consistent. This deck, or even when they were complete, they were not consistent. This thing is 100% guaranteed to be consistent. So that's one thing. The other thing is that it's going to have options. Like you're basically going to be able to either decimate control decks or black row, or to have some sort of defense every turn by just summoning this guy. So that's important. If you don't draw a back row, well, it really doesn't matter because this guy is like having a karma card in your extra deck for free. That's an important thing. And even if that was not enough, this guy can grab this card, which is going to search any card in your deck. So yeah, if you start seeing the pattern, it's basically cards, searchers that search other searchers that search other searches that completes the full cycle. And then we have the Blackbeard, the Plunder Patrol Captain. This guy has a water attribute. I mean, I skip the attributes of these guys. It's Dark, which is like the best attribute in the game, and it's Fire, which is not good, but Ash Blossom is a common play card, so that should help a bit. Then we have Water, which is terrible attribute. This card, it's a terrible. Water is a terrible attribute. I mean, if the Daiba deck catches on, like you could see someone playing it at a regional or Marine says, but it's not gonna be really that common in competitive, other than mirror matches. So, what this guy does, I mean, this is an interesting part. Like, it requires you any monster and 1 Plunder Patrol monster. I like way Konami makes this. I mean, this is basically what they learned from Isolde. They learned this from Isolde. This is a lesson that Isolde taught them. Uh, Isolde basically just needed to be 1 warrior or one monster and 1 noble knight monster. We could have avoided plenty of problems if Isolde said that. But on the other hand, if this card had said 2 Plunder Patrol monsters, it would have been way less competitive, because summoning 2 Plunder Patrol monsters is not easy. It's actually quite hard. As you can see, because if you throw this guy and this guy, you have no way, and you have them in your hand, you have no way to summon both of these guys to the field at the same time. But, on the other hand, if you throw either one of these guys, this or the other guy, and Instant Fusion, Engage, uh, Shade Brigandine, whatever extender you want, Photon Thrasher, you name it, any monster that can special summon himself, you have access to this card. What this card does, this is basically the equivalent of Isolde or Double Helix. It basically targets 1 effect monster you control, then you special summon 1 Plunder Patrol monster from your extra deck with the same attribute as a monster your opponent controls is in the graveyard. Then you are going to equip the monster you targeted, and then you're going to draw a card. Like this card takes the smaller guy's effect a step further, right? it basically it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous card. It's just way too powerful. You're basically going to be drawing a card. That card is going to set up the discard. The discard is going to take off one of your opponent's card, and then you're going to add a card. So it's basically a straight plus. It's just plus. It's way too much card advantage. Assuming you tribute a monster that already paid for itself, it's basically two cards in card advantage. The added card and the card you took off your opponent. And even if you don't control any more monsters, this guy can tag himself out. Also allows this guy and this guy to tag out, which is important, so you don't have them like dead there, which is really good. Then I'm going to close this video in 2 or 3 minutes. We have the field spell. The field spell is basically at 5 copies, which is 1 set rotation, 1 terraforming, and 3 copies of this, right? Basically, the deck from the get-go has 5 reinforcement of the armies, which is just crazy, honestly. What this card does is give 500 for each Plunder Patrol card in your spell trap zone. So it basically gives you 500 if you have this card, or even more. It's fine. What it does is discard one card. It can be any card like a Danger Monster or Phoenix Blade, whatever. Then you add 1 Plunder Patrol card from your deck to your hand, except this card. So yep, you can start to see the problem here. Like the monsters summon the extra deck monsters that in turn search this card, and this card can search any monster. That's a full circle, right? That's what makes a deck competitive actually, because not only you will have access to your cards in the first turn, you're going to have access to your full deck during the course of a game. That's what makes a deck powerful. You're going to have choices for all of the game, right? And then they were not even happy with that and made this card. So if this card's in your graveyard, you can target 1 Plunder Patrol card in your spell trap zone, and then you're going to recover this card to your hand. Basically, if your opponent destroys this card, but leaves this card down, you're going to recover this card, another card, and then reestablish the 2 cards needed. So that's needed. That's neat. Then this card's really powerful as well. The first thing is that it changes the attribute to any color you want. So basically you can summon the ship that is going to give you the most advantage in any particular situation. This card enables your full toolbox, and then it's going to act as a Call of the Hunted. So it basically sets up the full. It basically allows you to summon any extra deck monster you want once per turn. So I mean the last part is ridiculous. Like, once per turn during the end phase, if you control no Plunder Patrol monsters, send this card to the graveyard. They literally were not even trying to hide the fact that this card is meant to be utterly competitive. Like, if you control no Plunder Patrol monsters, is that you're losing the game already. But if you have this card, I don't think that losing the game is going to be that simple. So yeah, it's kind of funny that they were like, oh yeah, let's give it a drawback. But that drawback is kind of ridiculous. So I mean, they probably in testing, because they test a lot, realized that maybe this effect can come in certain scenarios, certain percentage of the times, and thought it might be a good restriction. I don't think it's a restriction that is important, but something to consider. So that's the review, guys. Basically, to sum it up, cards that search other cards. So you can have the correct card for the right time. Basically, what Isolde does, what Galatea does, what Engage does, what Shizuku does, right? That's exactly that's one part of what makes a deck competitive. The second part is being able to generate card advantage. This deck has that as well. And third would be to have legs. To have legs would mean that you can perform the action you need to perform not only on your first turn, but every turn you play the game. And this deck has this as well. The problem with this deck at the moment is that it only has 2 main monsters and 2 main deck spell traps. All of the effects require you to keep discarding Plunder Patrol cards, so you're going to run rather quickly out of steam. But that's going to be fixed with a future wave of support. Basically, I calculated it and it's like 25, I mean, between 20 and 25 Plunder Patrol cards, so you don't have any future problem. And I think that's going to happen. So that's it, guys. It was longer than I thought it would be. I hope you found it useful. Next time when you see a new archetype, try to check what I told you in this video. And if it doesn't match and you want to be competitive, like just avoid it. If you don't care and you just like the archetype and stuff, go for it. That's really good. I mean, I love casual players because they are what keep the game thriving and the game healthy. But if you're trying to have a bit of more of a competitive mindset, take these tips into account, right? See you later, guys.